2, 1.
Andrew Gray,
Hi.
good to see you, man.
Good to see you.
We've known each other a long time.
Yeah.
Been probably my whole life, right?
Pretty close.
So you grew up with my little brother Taylor,
Yeah.
and I have been obviously hanging out with you guys my whole life, and a few years back watched you start a company and grow it to what it is now. And you've been in the insurance industry for what? How long?
For the totality of my career post-college, so that's coming up on 12 or 13 years or something like
Wow. And
that. Yeah, 12
your
years.
business now is Virtus.
Correct.
And when did you start Virtus?
We started Virtus the very end of 2013, like around Thanksgiving, and then so really officially we say like January 1 of 2014.
Mm-hmm. And when did you first get into insurance?
Yeah, so I got into the insurance business. I'd interned at Lockton Companies here in Kansas City, large privately held firm. Subsequently worked for another large privately held firm right out of school, and did that for about 6.5 years prior to starting Virtus, and just had a bone in my body to break out and start an entrepreneurial endeavor. So,
What did I think we get a lot of people, just business owners, and we talk to a lot of people who want to be a business owner, talk about it, hesitate about it.
mm-hmm.
Did you always want to be a business owner when you were a kid, in college, when you were working for somebody else?
Yeah.
What was the mindset?
Yeah, I mean, I think more than anything, it's just about, for me, having freedom to be able to do and what you want to do and build and give yourself both economic freedom, hopefully, if you find success, as well as freedom to fix problems, triage issues, solve client problems without any red tape. So as far as, I think becoming an entrepreneur is certainly in vogue, right? It's like, you see the tech startups, you see all the big economics, and they've became almost like modern day rock stars, some of these guys. I don't think it's for everybody, right? You've got to be very passionate about either what you do or what you're trying to accomplish to be able to roll up your sleeves and grind. I mean, you've done it yourself. You know the trials and tribulations and the ups of the success and the downs when you're just grinding it out.
Yeah.
So I think I was wired this way largely, just in my DNA to go get after it and do something on my own. But because of that, I also firmly believe it's not for everybody.
Yeah. About 6 months before I took the leap, that's when I really was like, okay, what am I going to do now? I just got to a point where I could stay with the company and keep growing.
Right.
But it was weird. I was able to see where I was going to be in 5-year segments, and it scared the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, okay, well, this is the next promotion, and then I'll be here, and then I could just, it was like I could already see my whole life, and it was around this company.
Yeah.
And so it took me about 6 months to plan and prep, and I was freaked out because, like, what is the first step? What was your first step of going from working, because you worked for another local firm, what was your what were the first couple steps that you took in order to get closer to starting your own gig? Because we get a lot of people who are like, I got these ideas, I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
Like, what's the first thing that you did?
Yeah, I mean, my world was the exact same. I looked at where I would play out to within the ecosystem of the business I was in, and I just didn't want it. And it was a great business, is a great business, great people, so it's not that at all, but it was largely, the way I'm wired, the way I think about the world and stuff like that. And similarly, 6 months to a year before I left, I was pretty dead set that I had to leave just for my personal sanity. And I was in a great spot, similar to you, finding success and doing the right things theoretically. And so I got a lot of counsel from my friends and family and really people in the business community that I respected relative to what my plans were. And it's definitely nervous energy leading up to it, and kind of the weighing pros and cons, then also having fits and starts of I can do this versus holy shit, I'm scared, out of my mind to do it. I'm interested what your experience was, but once I actually pulled the ripcord and started, I was just on a train running down the tracks at full speed, and I never looked back, and I never really had any fear. Sure, there's moments where the business didn't go exactly as we planned, but at the same time, when you get this mentality that maybe I've developed or maybe inherently had, and I think most entrepreneurs do, you hit a bump in the road, you figure out how to go through it, around it, or pivot and progress. So we look at the business now. Yes, we're very disciplined in how we manage risk and look at the business in totality, but at the same time, it's more pedal on foot on the pedal in lieu of like looking back or having reservation about things we did. So I think the mechanics and all the legal and how to get it all set up and stuff like that, I'm not probably the right person to talk to, but you do have to have the discipline to do those things right. It obviously accelerates the path if you do all the kind of blocking and tackling correct. But certainly from like a psychology of it, it was just let's hit the gas, and it was an interesting almost relief to let go and go. And I was definitely more nervous prior to doing it than once we got into the weeds, because we just rolled up our sleeves and went. How did it work for you?
There's a lot of recruiting firms, as there are a lot of insurance brokerages, and just from a recruiting firm, you can call yourself a recruiting firm with an LLC and a LinkedIn account and a phone, and which is a good and bad thing. That's a whole nother conversation. But when I look at insurance, hey, start an insurance brokerage, it's like, well, don't we need a crap ton of capital to even get that? So that, what I'm trying to say is your endeavor seems a lot more daunting. For me, I had a few folks that were like, hey, I had one gal who had a kind of a dying staffing firm, and she was like, hey, do you want to take it over? And I'll give you 50%. And then I had another guy who wanted a partner. He was in a different industry but wanted a partner. There was other big firms that were hiring, or you could be a franchisee owner. And the whole time I was just like, I just want to do this by myself. Sure. And honestly, I just wanted to like eat shit by myself, build it up, start from scratch. Yeah. And so my non-compete was 60-mile radius around Kansas City, so I moved down to Fayetteville, Arkansas for a year. Yeah. And
I remember that.
Yeah, and I had, I kind of had one client in Fayetteville. And so, I just got coffee with that guy. Yeah. And staffed a warehouse worker. Yeah. About 4 months after I had started, AUX. But I was prepared, I was single. I didn't have any rent because I was staying at my buddy's place. Yeah. And I was living in a sweet condo in downtown Kansas City. Yeah. And said, screw it, we're going to go down there. So I was really bill free just about. I was eating Chipotle every day. And, but I look back at on that year, that was 2016, I really enjoyed that year. Yeah. Because it was, I don't know, there's something like, I was just by myself. And so it was, the first 2 years were lonely, and I was just celebrating by myself. and then I have Brett, who's in the background. He's like, I see what you're doing, and I want to get involved. Sure. And he was really the only, we had a big office at our old company. He was really the only guy who was like, I want to get involved, really seriously getting involved. And then so I gave him some insights, and he sat out his non-compete, and things have been going really well. And we both have more clients than we did when we were at our old company. Yeah. And we're fine, and we're winning more business because companies want to work with two hungry guys versus giving their money to $1 billion firm. Sure. So there's a lot of edges to it. Yeah.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I think when you look at these things, you got to enjoy the grind, right? Yeah. And I also think the optics of, even take maybe myself, I don't actually know, but the optics of, entrepreneurial endeavors is everybody starts in a shitty little office with a folding table and a phone and a computer, like by themselves, and are working till midnight and it's lonely, and it takes, an overnight success is like 5 or 7 or 10 years, and at the,
you're like, where did this guy come from?
Right.
You're like
grinding it out for 10 years,
and
like, you get a deal and you're celebrating with yourself, or you lose a deal and there's no one to really feel sorry for you, right? Whatever. So those things, I think when people look at, like I was saying earlier, particularly like the entrepreneurs are like the modern day rock stars in a lot of context, and there's a lot of aspiration, which is a good thing, to be successful in business. But
there's a lot of BS in that too. There's a lot of people just like, they just want to call themselves an entrepreneur, and it's just the landscape has gotten a little strange for me.
Well, you have to want to do it. Like, you have to be passionate about it, and you have to define what your objective is, right? So we want to build a big firm, so we set out to build a big firm. There's also great, what I'll call lifestyle businesses where you're a solo entrepreneur or whatever, and you have a product line or a service or something that you sell with no intent to really build a big business. And neither's right or wrong. It's really about objectively defining what you want to accomplish. But to your point, I mean, I think there's like a lot of, hey, I'm an entrepreneur and there's no real business case or something. Like, at the end of the day, in business, you've got to have an economic model that supports the sustainability of it and create shareholder value and all the things that businesses strive to do. And so there's totally a lot of hype about it. And so, as we were talking about earlier, maybe even before we started recording, you have to have such a passion as an entrepreneur to really roll up your sleeves and go that extra mile and keep grinding. And that's why I think it's not for everybody, right? I think that some people, it's a mental stamina that's tough, and there's a lot of lonely moments, even when you've built a firm with more and more people and more infrastructure. There's still, you've got to make decisions with half the information that you can. You got to make educated decisions on personnel or on a strategy or something like that. And half the time you're getting all the data inputs that you can to make that decision, but you're still guessing. And so that can be lonely, and you guess wrong. I mean, not everyone's right all the time. And so it's just got to be ingrained in you from a passion perspective and from a kind of objective, what you want to accomplish perspective. Otherwise, it's a grind.
You have 4 kids?
Yeah.
What was that like, running a business? What is it like, and what it was like when you first started out, having little kids?
So different than you. When I started, I had just bought a new house, and I had a 1-year-old or something like that. I think it's what you want to make of it, right? So I prioritize my life with kind of family number 1 and business number 2, and then everything else is somewhat ancillary, right? And I've got a good set of friends, which your brother and amongst others, that I run with and certainly devote time to. But you've got to prioritize what you want to accomplish. So I have to do simple things like, if I'm going to go to the gym, I got to wake up at 5 in the morning and do it before everybody wakes up, because come 5:30 at night, if I'm not traveling or whatever, I want to be home with my kids. But it certainly, it weighs on what you want to accomplish, right? I think I'm certainly much happier as a person being and more gratified having started Virtus and being an entrepreneur in that context. But you've also got to try and balance out and prioritize what's important. So sometimes it's tough, right? And I travel quite a bit, so there are times that are lonely on the road and things like that. But on the same context, a lot of what I do, sure, it's for myself, but a lot of what I do is foundational for my family and hopefully my kids, whether they want to be in the business or, have capital to be able to be free in what they want to try and accomplish in their careers, whether business or otherwise.
How do you scale a service-based business? We're very service-based here, and that's something that we're constantly tinkering with.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to invest in people. In the service industry, at least my opinion, more than any other industry, it's all about the people. we've had massive successes in people within our teams, and we've have had misses, like I think everybody, and we'll continue to have big successes and big misses. The rock stars, though, and building good teams and constructing a culture around that is the expectation makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And it's hard, right? You've got to continue to beat the drum on the culture. You've got to continue to evaluate the personnel and the teams you've got, and certainly in a scaling business, we've got maybe plus or minus 50 people now.
Mm-hmm.
In a scaling business, when we had 3 or 4 or 5 people, it was very easy for me to keep a pulse on everything,
mm-hmm.
right? I knew all the clients, I knew what was going on with the clients, I knew all the personnel, I knew everything that was going on, very tactical,
mm-hmm.
Very day-to-day, very granularly. As the business scales, part of the job, in my opinion, that I have is to continue to delegate away from those things and
mm-hmm.
put people in better positions who are better at certain work than I am to
mm-hmm.
do that. And that comes with a lot of trust, and it comes with a lot of discipline, and most importantly, it comes with hiring the right people, because you get the right people, and they show up every day, they
mm-hmm.
execute, and it makes all the difference in the world.
So you're on the higher end of the millennial generation. I'm kind of in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have, was it Gen Z that's coming out now?
I'm not sure.
Gen Y or Gen Z, I can never get them apart. What are you seeing in terms of sales guys and the core values and how they operate
Sure.
from your age, guys you grew up
Mm-hmm.
out of college learning from,
Mm-hmm.
and being side by side,
Yeah.
and with the folks that are maybe in their mid-20s right now, early 20s?
I think I haven't put much thought to it. We've got a lot of millennials in our firm. The demographic in our industry, the insurance brokerage industry, is weighted towards, I'll just call it the older generation. I don't know what else to call it. I think the average shareholder age of an insurance brokerage is in the high 50s, and the average producer or salesperson age is right about the same. And so our average age is in the lower 30s, right? So we're differentiated in that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, I think if you get the right people, whether they're 70 years old or 22 years old, and they've got the right motor, the right integrity, the right values, I don't really see any material difference.
Mm-hmm.
Now, certainly they're engaging in better utilizing technology.
Mm-hmm.
I would never have guessed, even just 10 years ago when I was in the business world, that you'd be texting clients,
Yeah.
Email and phone, right? And
Yeah.
now, regularly texting
Regularly.
clients. And so I think some of that is beneficial and we can learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think some of it is, depending on who they're corresponding
Mm-hmm.
with, they've got to be able to flex up or down. But
Yeah.
I think the millennials sometimes get a bad rap.
Mm-hmm.
Our folks are awesome. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's
I don't
good.
know.
It's good to hear.
Really, how to answer any different than that.
Yeah. Some of our strongest clients and relationships that we have today started from cold calling, hitting an Excel spreadsheet with names, titles, and phone numbers on it.
Yep.
And really doing that for a couple of years. Are you seeing any reluctancy or pushback from folks
Not if
now?
they want to keep their job.
Yeah. Because I feel like people
serious.
are trying to sell more through email or through technology softwares and devices,
Yeah.
versus just picking up that phone and talking to people. What do you guys do at Virtus?
We do everything, right?
Yeah.
But I still fully believe, and I've got one guy in particular in my team who just is a cold call machine to this
Mm-hmm.
day. And he's built a great block of business, and he keeps doing it. And so you can see the success. I mean, the proof is there. And so I think there's value in that, right? I think there's value in brand building, whether it's LinkedIn or, the website or whatever, in the context of just having a good public image and
Mm-hmm.
who you are and what you do and how you do it and stuff like that. But then, I think that cold calling certainly delivers results.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's any better or worse than really just doing email campaigns.
Yeah.
I would say most of our folks do a little bit of everything, right? We attend conferences, we do emails, we do cold calling, we do networking,
Yeah.
kind of all of the above. And I think it's just the hustle. You know how to, what you guys do.
Yeah.
Right?
How do you find good people?
So
mean, there's plenty of insurance firms here in Kansas City,
yeah.
and it's a very competitive market. And how do you guys? You think it's culture? You think it's
Yeah, I think it's culture. We've hired a lot of people just through like kind of word of mouth and people that had worked with other people or alongside other people historically. You know, in the beginning we had more misses on personnel and people than we do now, for sure. Just because we weren't as sophisticated, we didn't have as much money, we didn't have as much patience, all those things. You know, we try and spend a lot of time with our prospective candidates in advance just to vet whether they're you know, the right people, whether we like each other. I mean, just simple, like human elements. And a lot of the work can be taught, and every firm does it a little bit differently. So, sure, we want them in a lot of scenarios to have baseline understanding of insurance and have done the work, so that there's not that kind of academic training side of it. But then it's really about the person and do they fit in the culture. And you know, we do other things that we, you know, will weigh into the credibility, or do personality profiling and stuff like that, and make sure that they're wired for the match for the job. But, you know, that's just one element of it. I don't think you can weigh 100% on that. I don't think you can. I just think it helps maybe make sure that you're thinking about things the right way. But I don't think there's one specific way we've gotten the right people. You know, I think it certainly helps when you have a background or context with that person, whether they've worked with someone else or you know them from a past career or life or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we're just real disciplined in the process. And we still miss. You know, we have great people.
Oh, yeah.
But we still miss, right?
Yeah.
Or I expect we still miss, you know?
Yeah. Was it hire slow, fire fast?
Yeah.
We're seeing a huge uptick in culture index and these personality assessments, and seeing more so than ever.
Yeah.
Especially this year. What do you feel like they work?
Yeah, we use Culture Index. I feel like it works. I feel like it should be the way that we use it. I think is the right way. We spend a lot of time with the person. It depends on the scenario. I shouldn't say that. I think we use it as just a validation of what we see and think and feel. Certainly, when there's been mishires prior to like deploying a personality profile, you can look back and say this person was never, you know, wired for the role, right? If it's a really data-centric role and they don't have any, you know, detail orientation, it's just not going to work. So I think there's cues we look for in those things. We certainly don't weigh 100% into them, but we do look at it.
Is Virtus your sole focus, or are you also in other ventures?
Oh, I've got some ancillary stuff, but I'd say for all intents and purposes, it's my sole focus. You know, at my in my prior life, prior to founding Virtus, you know, I had a bunch of side stuff. I invested in real estate and did all this stuff in an active kind of capacity. I of course have passive stuff, but you know, when you look at the, you know, just take the economics, you look at the wealth you can generate through a concentration and really what you're going to do day in, day out, it dwarfs in comparison anything that I had on the side or would have on the side.
Yeah.
So, you know, narrowed the lane to you know, largely focus and concentrate solely on the business.
Yeah, put all your rain and sunshine on one plant.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to, you know, water the whole field essentially.
Well,
and I think
we do 80 hours a week.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people have all these different ideas and they've been doing all these different things, and it's focus all your energy and time in one thing and be really, really good at it.
That's how you generate wealth, through concentration, and then once you've got it, through diversification, you keep it. But I do think you're right. I mean, it's kind of this fallacy of these entrepreneurs that we were talking about earlier. It's like, I want to do this and this and this and this, and it's like you can never materially impact one enough because there's just not enough hours in the day and focus. If you know you're the serial entrepreneur that's all over the place, you've got to have definitive focus. Is my view.
Where do you see Virtus in 5 years, 10 years?
Rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna keep doing what we're doing. You know, we've expanded into Colorado. We're about to announce expansion into a handful of other markets.
Will you have individual offices in those places?
Yep.
And do you have a sales manager or a leader in each one of those offices?
Yep.
How difficult is that to maintain? Because that's a lot of time, especially from you coaching and mentoring.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about getting the right people. If you get the right people, right, and align their interests, You don't have to do too much of that now. There's still certainly like learning experiences that we've had, and let's just take hiring because it's the subject here. In hiring folks, where we can add value to what they're trying to do because they just haven't done it, as an example. If they were a good salesperson in another organization or something, that's largely what drives the outreach from our perspective, and might not have the direct kind of experience of hiring people or building teams and stuff like that. So I think we've had some really good learnings in our evolution that can add value to them. But again, if you hire the right people and you line them appropriately, hit the gas.
Yeah.
So that I would say that's largely the view. We've centralized a lot of the resourcing as far as what I'll call back office, so HR, IT, legal, accounting, finance, out of Kansas City. So our satellite offices, if you will, are largely sales and service offices, so they don't have to do the paperwork associated with the hire and the onboarding and stuff like that. So that really enables them to focus on servicing the clients and growing the business.
I don't think we covered it. Which insurance do you specialize in?
So we have really 3 divisions within our business. Property casualty insurance, which is just general business insurance for folks that don't know. Within the property casualty vertical, we specialize in commercial real estate and private equity. We certainly have clients across a spectrum of industries, but when we're focused and outbound, we've determined to be specialists in those 2 industries, and we'll continue to bolt on industries with the view of really being more of the Navy SEALs than the Army, and having laser focus and being the best in those versus being jack of all trades, master of none. I'm a firm believer that's helped us scale our business much faster. So that's the property casualty business. Then we have the employee benefits business. More product specialization rather than industry specialization, just due to the nature of the product, right? There is some nuances between industries, but for all intents and purposes, maybe less specialized from calling on just, private equity or just real estate or something like that. And then we have a small business and personal lines practice, so that will be your general small business as well as your home and auto. And the breakdown was, my background was in property casualty, so in the beginning we were very concentrated in that vertical, but subsequently it's levelized across property casualty, employee benefits, and small business, which is our intent.
Yeah. Well, it's been great. Do you have any upcoming opportunities? And also, if someone wants to get a hold of you, how do they go about doing that?
So if someone wants to get a hold of me, I assume this will be on LinkedIn. They can find me there.
Send you a message.
Send me a message or whatever. Any upcoming opportunities? What do you mean, like what we're working on?
Yeah, maybe internally, hiring.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think the way that we're positioning our business, we've got a long-term view of the industry. If you look at our industry on a macro basis right now, the insurance brokerage industry, there's a ton of consolidation. So what that's created is a lot of green space for us. These really good privately held independent firms are all being acquired by either private equity or the large publicly traded guys. What that means for us is that talent, whether it's client service folks, management team, executive level folks, or sales folks, are being displaced. And sometimes that's great for their career, right? They get to be part of a bigger outfit. Some folks like the independence and the entrepreneurial kind of spirit that they had in a smaller shop. So, we're really targeting folks across the spectrum in that are talented and passionate about what they do, and have a real career and want to expand their career, not just a job in the industry. And we found a lot of opportunity due to this consolidation that's occurring. And with a long-term view, we can make investments in teams and people that don't have a short-term payback like a lot of these private equity firms and others have. So, I think we're interested in always meeting with good people and ambitious people. And then if you want to get in contact with me, I think LinkedIn messaging, I generally look at it, intermittently. So happy to engage.
Nice, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Enjoyed it, brother.
Anything else you want to go over?
No.
Awesome.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we're good, brother.
All right, it's a wrap.
Thanks, man.
Awesome.